Okay, hi Robert, how are you?
I'm great, Douglas. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
As we were just talking about, you were on the audio podcast over a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, at that time you had a book and it was part of your Cal Rogan Mystery series. This is the new book that's out now?
No, the new book isn't quite out yet, but the book that we sent you is one that just won a big prize in the Global Book Awards for self-published authors. It won gold medal in in crime mystery, and also was the overall winner of the competition. Um, yeah, it's the book before my last book, and it is actually, I think, my favorite of the books.
Congratulations for the award. Uh,
Thank
the,
you very much.
the book is called Captive, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, now was that the same book that we had talked about on the previous show?
On the previous show, we talked about Jailed, which is the latest book in the series.
Why don't you just explain the Cal Rogan series a little bit? Give people an idea of what the series is about.
Yeah, it's interesting. The series came to me when I was chatting with my editor. At the time, I was still in the computer business, and I was doing a project. And every day when I went to my clients' offices, I walked past this alley that was full of drug addicts, and it really was kind of a freaky place. And I said to my editor, "What would it be like to wake up in that alley?" And just how awful would that be? And she said, "Well, who might wake up in that alley?" And we chatted about it and came up with the idea of an ex-cop who is a drug addict waking up in that alley. And that's how the first book came about. And I wrote the first book having no idea that it would be a series. But now we're 7 books into the series, with the eighth one in the works at the moment. So that's how it all came about.
Do you have any idea when you started this series how many books there's going to be? Or even at this point, how many books there's going to be?
I'm going to keep, as I always say, paraphrasing Charlton Heston, I'll stop writing when they pry my computer out of my cold, dead hands. So I don't know how many more books there are going to be, but I'm just going to keep doing them because I love them.
Well, it could just go on potentially forever, couldn't it? As long as you had
It could.
ideas of where your characters should go and what he should do next. And
Yeah, I'm actually going to start a second series in which Cal's daughter, who in the current series is currently 8 years old, no, sorry, she's currently 11 years old, um, where she is an adult and a cop and an experienced cop. And I'm going to set it in the year 2044. So, um, and it will be just crime fiction, but just allow me to present my vision of the near future. So
so
that's where I'm going.
you're gonna do a time jump, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But a completely different series, actually, about Ellie Rogan rather than Cal Rogan. And I'll keep the two series going.
Oh, I see. So, sort of a spin-off.
Yeah, spin-off, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking about something you said that you used to work in the computer industry. Was it you that we had the conversation about Y2K? Was that the one?
I think we did talk about Y2K. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I do so many interviews, it's hard to keep track of all the conversations I've had with people, but it's something is coming back to my memory about we had the sort of a conversation about that and how it turned out to be nothing, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of people made a lot of money on it, especially older programmers who were familiar with the older programming languages like COBOL, because a lot of software was still written using those languages. And so they didn't have anyone who knew how to change the languages to change the date from 6 characters to 8. So a lot of old programmers made money doing that.
Do you think this was a deliberate hoax, or was there a genuine fear?
Oh, there was a genuine problem, that with older programs running on older computers, programs written in the 70s and 80s, programmers were always aware of how much space they were taking up on the computers, because you didn't have gigabytes of memory, you had kilobytes. And so dates were always expressed as year, month, day, with 2 digits for each. So if those programs had continued on without being modified, they would have failed to work. So it was a real potential problem that had to be fixed.
Well, it was interesting because I remember watching the countdown for New Year's on the year 2000, and having the computer on and looking at it going, okay, come on. And nothing happened.
Yeah, yeah.
It flipped over, and then that was it.
I think a lot of financial systems had originally been written in the COBOL language, with only 2 characters of year. So I think a lot of banks were holding their breath that everything was going to work on January the 1st. And it did.
It did.
I don't know of a single instance of a software failure due to Y2K.
Well, it seems to me that was the start of it, in the sense of not being so trustworthy of the news media when they put out a major panic alert, because now it's like everything is a panic, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, we live in the age of, among other panics, moral panic as well.
That's a good point. Moral panic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to your book series for a second. So, is this series going to be developed, do you think, into film or television? Are you pursuing that avenue at all?
I haven't been pursuing it, but a friend of mine put me in touch with a producer who has been successful with getting things on Netflix. Now he's out of the country for a while, but when he gets back next year, we're going to have a chat and see if he's interested in taking it on as a project. So I'm quite excited about that. The books, I think, would translate to screen well.
You said you're up to 8 in the series now?
Seven published, and the 8th one I'm working on at the moment.
Okay, because you've already got the first 2 seasons, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you could probably run one book for half a season. Over several 1-hour episodes, 4 1-hour episodes. So you could do 2 books a season. So if it went that way, that would be 3 seasons worth.
I think some authors have the concern that their whole story is going to get sort of shredded when they send it off to be made into a film or into a series, that it won't keep the integrity of the story. Is that something that would worry you?
I don't think so. I was an actor for a short while, and I recognize that the medium is different, and you need to handle a story differently on film than you do in a book. So I would expect there to be changes to it, and after it's done, some of them I may not like, but hey, that's tough. If you trust the people who are doing the production, you trust that they've done it the right way.
Well, there's also the money factor too. You have to sort of allow them to do what they're going to do if they're going to write you a nice big check for your
Right.
work.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have to sort of say, okay, this one I sold,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'll do something else, and I'll keep that for my heart or for my
Hmm.
soul or something like that. I think there's a
Yeah.
split there that people
Yeah.
have to become aware of, because I've seen some authors get very precious about their work. I'll just tell you a quick story. There was a guy who came on the show. I won't mention his name, but it was a true story about his uncle, who was a fairly famous scientist in the 1950s, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, he got the sort of dream deal from, I think it was Fox Searchlight or one of the huge Hollywood studios. Wanted to turn this thing into a motion picture. We're going to pay him something in the neighborhood of $4 or $5 million for the
Good
rights
Lord.
to the story. And he went into talks with them, and in the end, they scrapped it because he wouldn't budge on one single bit of the story. They wanted to take out a little bit here, move a little bit there. And he says, no, I can't do that because it would be, I don't know what his phrase was. It was like disrespectful to his late uncle. I mean, come on. I think your uncle would have been proud that you just made $5 million off his story.
I would have thought, yeah. I understand with nonfiction that it's a little bit trickier, but with fiction, I wouldn't mind if they changed it. In fact, it would be kind of good to make changes in the movies, because then if people read the book, there would be new things. There would be things in the book that are not in the movie, and vice versa. So I think that would be great. But I can understand, if you're really attached to a non-fiction subject, being a little more,
A little more precious
the,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, a little more precious. Good word. Good word.
The only the only thing that for me is that I don't think that they were going to take any major liberties with the story. I don't think they were going to have him turn into a transvestite prostitute or something that,
Right.
way out of the realm of reality. But it just seemed rather nitpicky. And then, of course, at that point, he was struggling. He was still trying
Mm,
to get the thing. And this was years later. He was trying to shop it
mm,
around still. I said, you
mm.
should have just taken the deal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know there is an issue for scientists in documentaries, um, because the frequently a scientist will be asked to be in a documentary, and they will take his words out of context. Um, and there are several scientists who have been in documentaries that where they have been quoted as saying something which is completely different to what they said, almost as blatant as the scientist saying, "I would never propose such and such and such and such," and they just take out the word "would never." Edit out the "would never."
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And there's some blatant things. So I can understand scientists worrying about documentaries, but um, if it's a documentary about your uncle who was a scientist in the 50s, who's probably passed away now, um, why worry about the details?
Well, that's what I thought. But your point is taken. I didn't think of it in terms of, yes, this is a nonfiction and therefore there's a real story. With a fiction, you can tweak it as much as you like because it's not real. But your point's taken. Anyways, we do have to wind this down. So the new book is going to come out when? The latest book?
Early next year.
Early next year.
Early
Okay.
next year. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on the award. And
Thank you very much.
give out your website, please.
Robert P. French, www.robertpfrench.com. Anyone who goes there can get the first book in the series free as well if they want to test the waters.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for coming on this show. It's nice talking to you. Nice seeing you this time. And best of luck. We look forward to the book in early next year.
Thank you very much, Douglas. It was great to talk to you again. Thanks a lot.